This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Whether you have school-age children or not, it's hard to ignore the chaos surrounding the Clark County School District Board of Trustees. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, we talk with a real insider. Patricia Haddad Bennett served as the CCSD Director of Government Relations for 2 years. She explains what a school board does and why it often seems like more drama than drive when it comes to our students. It's Wednesday, September 18th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Patricia, the Clark County School District is a very visible part of regular news cycles in our valley, but apart from the allure of the drama, why should childless folks like me care?
Well, David, Clark County School District is the agency that we as Nevadans love to hate. But, why
I should say
care?
I am a product of the Clark County School District.
Well, and I'll add, so am I, for many years. And thinking about what the school board does and why should you care if you don't have kids, couple of things. First, they're setting the vision and the direction for education for 300,000 kids in our community that are attending public schools with them. You're also paying for it out of your tax dollars. So it's important to be thinking about how that money is being spent at a board level and at a district level. And that's what the school board looks at as well.
Well, I don't think a lot of people in the Valley know exactly what the school board does. I understand policy is a big word, but I don't know, break it down for me. What do they do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so day-to-day basis, the school board's responsible for three things. One, like I said, setting the vision and sort of the outset of what are the things that the school district is paying attention to and what are they caring about, whether that's student achievement, whether that's discipline and, sort of how is discipline being rolled out in schools, ensuring that there is, alignment to what's happening nationally and sort of the needs that we put on education to make sure that we've got really prepared kids to move on as adults and enter our workforce and on from there. That's one thing. The second thing that they do is fiscal oversight. So they have a $3.5 billion budget. The trustees are responsible for ensuring that that budget looks right and that money is being allocated aligned to those priorities. The third thing, arguably one of the most important things, is they hire and fire the superintendent for the school district. So essentially, that's the CEO. Clark County School District is the largest employer in Nevada. They've got 41,000 employees. So even if you don't have kids that are attending the school district, you probably know someone that works there or that has kids there. And they're responsible for 300,000 kids in their education. So really critical piece of the responsibility of the school board is selecting that superintendent. And they're in the midst of a search right now for a new superintendent.
Yes, I've been reading the newspapers. I hear all about that search that is coming our way. And I've heard about searches in the past. And before we get into the superintendent stuff, I guess maybe I'm a little confused with the structure. So you have individual schools, and they have their own issues that they deal with all the time. Then you've got the school board that's kind of this oversight group that's implementing certain policies in conjunction with other standards like the state Department of Education, federal laws, maybe even the legislature. So everybody's got their fingers in this school pie?
Yes.
Oh, no.
It would be the short answer.
Is that why there's so much dysfunction?
It could be that everyone is themselves an expert in education, and it's sort of different than you get in some other areas, right? Everybody went to school, more or less, whatever their version of school looked like. And so everyone has a very strong opinion on what it should look like and what is the right way to do it. So I think that's one of contention here. But structure-wise, it's multi-layered, right? You've got your federal laws and your federal protections, right? Things like protections for students that have special needs, right? That's where you get into your IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Act. And then you also get federal funding. From there, that filters down at a state level. You've got the legislature that's creating laws. And that also is providing authority to either the school board themselves or the Department of Education and the State Board of Education to create regulations and rules that the school district needs to then follow. So then the school board of trustees adopt that. And then that filters down to the individual schools for implementation ultimately, or the central district for implementation. The sort of wacky thing about Clark County School District is the local sort of site-based decision-making. Each school has the ability to make decisions for their school community. And so there are some things that are across the district, but they really have to be opt-in for those schools. Principals at the school level have a lot of decision authority as well. Hiring and firing, for example.
Oh, interesting. See, that's kind of my question is like, what I guess I'm trying to get at is just how powerful is the school board? I mean, could they do things like ban books if they wanted to, district-wide?
The school board has a lot of power within the district, but there is this question, and you heard a lot of this with the last superintendent, and it almost became a meme, was operational versus non-operational decisions. And so where the line falls between operational versus non-operational, I think depends on who you ask. When you talk about ultimately that they are hiring and firing that superintendent, that is an immense amount of power because that superintendent has the ability to impact our entire community, essentially.
Interesting. Well, we've been reading a lot about this kerfuffle over Trustee Katie Williams. I'm going to try to sum it up really quickly. Katie Williams was one of the elected school board trustees. There were some allegations that she didn't live here anymore, but she was still participating, voting when she did show up, not showing up to certain meetings. Ultimately, the Clark County District Attorney's Office sent her a seemingly threatening letter saying, are you going to resign because we have some information that you're doing this improperly? There were even accusations that she was, committing fraud, collecting that whopping $750 a month paycheck that trustees get. So she's gone now. What's your take on why she stayed? If she was, in fact, not able to even attend in person. I mean, let's give her the benefit of the doubt that she was splitting her time between here and somewhere else. Why? Why stay in there?
I, wouldn't surmise to be in her head, right? But there are some critical decisions that are at hand. The superintendent search being one of them. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but it is sort of front of mind. They were looking to make a decision before this upcoming election and to do that by November 1st, to have a new superintendent in place. And so timing wise, that was a decision at hand. There were some other decisions at hand that were sort of important. I don't know if you heard about what was happening out at the Mount Charleston, the elementary school up there, which is in District B, which was formerly represented by Trustee Williams and now not represented by anybody.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bunch of things, and it also looked like a lot of the drama, again, coming out of the school board was the fact that they were kind of stuck in a majority-minority tension. And Katie Williams was part of that. But how was she part of that? Like, which faction, if I might use that word, was she sort of aligned with?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think a lot of the school board votes you'll see, especially sort of the particularly contentious ones, have come down to a 4-3. Oftentimes with Trustee Williams being on the 4 side, but there's a wild card in there. And so, You can never, fully anticipate how a vote will go down at the school board of trustees. And I try to tell that to everyone that I talk to about who's attending those meetings or looking for information about them. But ultimately, what this brings it down to, and we saw this at their most recent school board meeting, which was the day after Trustee Williams submitted her resignation. And what you saw were 3-3 votes, deadlocked. And they weren't able to move forward on on at least one item. And so they need a majority. Their board policies don't contemplate a tiebreaker also. So it'll be interesting to see how they move forward with filling the vacancy as well. And how that timeline aligns with some of these other decisions at hand, like the school up on Mount Charleston and like this search.
Yeah, so it does seem like Katie Williams was a key vote here because now they're in deadlock. Do you think that one of the reasons that she was staying on was to sway the vote on the superintendent search?
People are definitely saying that. You could hear that in the public comment. You hear that from some voices on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well.
Katie Williams did an interview with the Nevada Independent, and she basically said, well, I stuck around because I care. And again, assuming that is true, these superintendent searches, hanging on to have a voice for who that person's going to be, these last few have been very contentious. Why is the superintendent search so divisive amongst members of a board of trustees like ours?
It's the most important decision that the board will make.
Okay.
So it's really critical because the board then also gets the lightning rod, just like the superintendent does. So if they get it wrong, they get it wrong for a lot of people. And if they get it right, then a lot of people benefit. And so the stakes are high.
TheList.Vegas. It's the free Las Vegas events newsletter created by locals and curated for locals. From food festivals to family events, from burlesque shows to art exhibits, if it's awesome, it's on TheList.Vegas. Every Wednesday, you'll get a list of cool things to do, dining deals, freebies, and other stuff right in your inbox. No algorithmic garbage or AI sludge here. It's 6 human curators handpicking cool events every week. TheList.Vegas was founded by Andrew Corrali. He's a native Las Vegan, longtime local journalist, and well, he's very popular. The sportos, the motorheads, the geeks, and me, we all adore him. We think he's a righteous dude, and he's a CityCast contributor to boot. TheList.Vegas is a fun read for anyone interested in our city, and it's the best place to discover the coolest things to do in Las Vegas.
Introducing our biggest GMC Acadia ever. Offering bigger screens, bigger views, and even bigger journeys. Live your biggest life in the all-new GMC Acadia.
So the school board is theoretically composed of nonpartisans. Actually on the ballot, it's nonpartisan. How nonpartisan is it in practice?
Nonpartisan, but it's fairly political, right? These are still individuals that come with their own political ideologies and their own backgrounds, their own values. And so while it's not as simple as looking for the letter next to their name in parentheses when you're checking off your ballot, really doing your research and looking for candidates that align to your values is going to be the most important piece.
Is maybe one hint, because, we see these Democrats and Republicans alike from the legislature and other places in the state getting all up in the school board's business, being very public about it, sending them letters, criticizing that. How does a school board handle these partisan politics coming at them and maybe inside them as well? Like if the Democratic Assembly leader suggests that some board members are doing the right thing and others aren't, do we assume that they are aligned with Democratic ideals? Conversely, if the minority leader of the Republican Party does the opposite, are these cues? Do the school board placate or even play to these actual politicians?
So is the really interesting question. I think that, and this is my opinion, I did spend one legislative session representing the school district, and then a couple of years total representing them with elected officials. And I can say if one thing is universal and we'll get someone reaching across the aisle, it's if you want to talk about how poorly the school district is doing, the Clark County School District is doing. So that's a sort of universal.
Well, that's a bipartisan issue in the legislature, totally is that the school district sucks?
And also, I mean, I don't think that necessarily hearing from particular individuals from particular parties are indicators of Democratic versus Republican versus third party types of platforms. It's difficult. School board members are elected also by the public, and oftentimes are elected by more people vote for them than many of our elected officials at the state level even represent within
Is that because they have
districts.
bigger districts?
They have larger districts, exactly. And so when you think about the balance of perspectives, right, that need to be struck, they really are in a difficult position. And the legislature has a lot of power to limit the school board's ability to make decisions. Just this past session, they added 4 additional members, these appointed non-voting members. And so they do have the ability to get in there and restructure things. I think we'll see some of that coming up as well, especially in relation to accountability.
Accountability, and also even the very structure of the school board. Haven't there been discussions about breaking up the school district? And that would be a legislative thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there have been discussions about breaking up the school district, I don't know, since I was in school. So I don't know if that's been a conversation since you were in school, David. But
when I was in school, we were high achieving and everyone thought everybody was doing great. And then
it's because we weren't measuring anything.
Oh,
no
there
offense.
you go. There you go.
So,
that's how I got through. I knew something was awry.
Yeah. So, they've looked at it many ways and from many different angles. And breaking it up into smaller parts can mean a bunch of different things. Ultimately, the question at hand is whether or not you can do that in a way that doesn't segregate kids and segregate our community. Because that's why it sort of came together in this way in the first place, to be this sort of massive entity. But yeah,
shooting
lots
for
of
equity
conversations.
Or stuff like that, the good stuff.
Yeah, and part of the reorganization of the school district that happened about a decade ago at this point was to bring more decisions to the local school. So you've got your school organizational teams that include parents and teachers and the principal who are voting on the school's budget, for example, and voting for who the principal is. And so rather than break up the school district, they kind of reallocated the decisions. That said, I think, there's a real question as to how you can break up the district and ensure that every kid in Clark County is still receiving that same access to education.
Well, Patricia, you're almost making me feel sorry for the school board trustees. It seems like they're caught between the legislators and their own constituents, and from like the schools below and from maybe the Department of Education and everyone else above. Is it a thankless job?
A thankless job? Yeah. I mean, $750 a month I don't know how big of a thank you that really is. But yeah, they really are the direction of a lot of ire. And there are a lot of really excellent things that are happening. And I want to say that clearly. There are really excellent things that are happening every single day at the Clark County School District. And, the school board has some play in that as well. But yeah, it's a tough job.
I want to put a pin in the good stuff that they're doing, and I want to focus on the ire for a second.
Okay.
School board meetings seem like they're getting louder and more contentious. And could you describe one of the more intense school board meetings that you've attended this past year, just to give kind of a flavor of it?
Louder and more contentious. I don't know if it's louder and more contentious in comparison to masking and at-home school, remote school and, oh, God forbid, genderless bathrooms. Those were some pretty intense, school board meetings. But I think when you look at, some things around, for example, The contract negotiations would be one where we saw some meetings, and that was this past school year. We saw some meetings get out of hand. Folks were escorted out because they were yelling and sort of not following decorum of the school board meeting. But if you've never watched a school board meeting, I highly recommend. That is actually my reality TV that I like to watch with popcorn or while I'm eating dinner. But yeah, I mean, it is an intense, passionate, accusations.
Fly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And everyone's allowed to talk. I mean, because it's a public meeting. So you have teachers, you have parents, you have people from the community, you have, I would like to fondly call them wackadoodles, who are suggesting conspiracy theories that are beyond belief. And it's all happening in these public meetings. Is that counterproductive? Or do you think that is healthy?
So it is, in many ways a public square, and democracy is messy. And I think that's okay. And transparency is important. And it's important that there is, at the very least, in this very one way, a defined, formal, protected way to have your voice heard by this board. I think that's important. I mean, I would, buckle up. They don't go till, 2 a.m. like they did in the past, but it's certainly not for the faint of heart.
So looking towards the future, Patricia, how do you think that the school board can kind of put the drama behind and do what's best for the kids?
Yeah, I think it's really about the tone and tenor of the conversations that they're having as a board. Probably some of the tone and tenor of the individual trustee voices that are out in the world as well. I think what they can do, like I said, is continue to build consensus. Ideally, we'll have a fresh group of individuals on the board. There's only one person running that is currently seated on the board as an incumbent. And so it will be many new faces, regardless of how the races go. And I think what will really benefit this board is if they can move towards building some consensus, and if they can find some common ground on what's most important for kids in our community, putting some of the political stuff aside. We know kids need to read, kids need to know how to do math. Let's start there, right? And if they can start there and build their conversations out, then there's a lot to gain.
Tone down the personalities, tune up the policy.
Tune up on kids.
Tune up on kids. Patricia Haddad Bennett, thank you so much for joining us on CityCast Las Vegas. It was really interesting.
Thanks for having me.
Before you go, if you're a CityCast Las Vegas member, you'll receive an email this afternoon on how to score 2 tickets to UNLV's Body Traffic on September 28th. Body Traffic is a one-night-only dance performance that Broadway World is calling absolutely joyous and oh so entertaining. The tickets will go to the first 9 members who fill out a quick Google form. If you're interested in supporting us and getting access to special perks like these, sign up at membership.citycast.fm/Las Vegas. And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, please go tell a friend and then go rate the show where you listen to it. Leave us a review too and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.